So once again, I'm Alyssa with Grad Academy, and we get to welcome back, actually, Dr. Cotrone, who has presented for us before. It's a really wonderful talk. Dr. Cotrone is from the College of Hospitality here at UNLV, and I think I will leave it like there, and you can go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. I appreciate the invitation to come back. I understand you're all in STEM. Rock on. Thank you for saving the world. I'm in hospitality, where we get to do all the fun stuff. So today we're going to talk about where does our time go. I love to start with what are some of the things that you're thinking about, some of the challenges that you've had in your undergrad as you head into grad. How can we specifically make this talk about you and your needs? So I'm going to open up the floor. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just shout out, here's some things I've been thinking about that I'd like to know more about. And if it's not in my area of expertise, I will not make stuff up, I promise. If you're on Zoom, round of applause for Sage, because she will shout out what you're saying on Zoom. Round of applause. All right, so what are some of the things that you're thinking about, worried about, would like some assistance with?
School-family harmony.
School-family harmony, which I suspect you already know does not get easier outside of school. Right. So what is school-family harmony? What is that? Anybody want to take it? It's another way of naming work-life balance, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how we get the most out of the time that we have, because we only have so many hours in the day. How many members of your family are there and their ages?
I have a 16, soon to be 17-year-old senior in high school.
Okay.
I have a 20-year-old who is starting her sophomore year in college.
Awesome.
And I also have a 93-year-old elderly father that I'm caring for.
Okay, so those are some responsibilities. Who else here has responsibilities outside of getting your degree? Okay. Many of us, and for those of you that didn't raise your hand, I would call BS on that. So I'm going to. BS for those of you that didn't raise your hand. Okay, so we're going to talk about that, and if we don't get to that deep enough for you, I want you to say, Dr. Cotrone, don't lie to me. Tell me how we work this out, okay?
Okay.
Thank you for getting us started. What's your name?
Lorraine.
Lorraine, everybody applaud Lorraine. Or the snaps, I'm good with that too. What else? What are some of the things that you're thinking about, worried about?
I'm like worried about, did I do the right choice about the field I'm going to do my research and PhD? Because I could choose between two fields, which are both under mechanical engineering. But I was like kind of hovering which one is like, so I choose the one that the door opened for me.
Okay.
So now I'm considering, should I put my energy and my resources on this one, or should I try to find the next one and like kind of shift?
What's your name?
Asal.
Did everybody hear what Asal just asked?
Yeah.
How do I know I'm in the right program? That's what college is for. Right? That's what, you have a bachelor's degree. Now you're stepping into your master's, ultimately your PhD, right? So how do you know it's the right field? That's what your coursework is for. That's, if you get halfway through and you're like, you know what, I've explored these areas and I think I want to shift, you shift. There is no shame in, I just realized my passion is over here.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that. And the world doesn't have a single right answer. So give yourself some grace and some opportunity to explore while you're also getting the coursework that you're currently in, giving it the attention that it needs. And if you decide that, you know what I really want is a PhD in hospitality, then you reach out to somebody in the hospitality college and you say, hey, do you have a couple of minutes? Obviously, that's a drastic difference that I'm not anticipating. But if it were, you reach out to somebody that teaches in that area and pick their brain. Right? There's nobody says you get one shot at this learning thing and that's where you gotta stay. There are no rules. It's what do you get excited about? What do you get up in the morning excited to learn more about?
But I feel like this opportunity has been given to me because I had an interview with my professor, and he kind of like, I proved myself as qualified and he chose me. So I'm getting the scholarship on this.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking if I choose to shift and I tell him, okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, but I'm going to shift, I kind of feel a little bit like not very comfortable with the idea.
So your feelings and emotions and comfortability are yours. Own them, right? Emotional intelligence teaches us there's no right or wrong where emotion is concerned. Emotion is information. So I'm feeling uncomfortable with this. If I'm your professor, I want you to come and have that conversation with me should you decide down the road that you want to make that change. I'm uncomfortable having this conversation with you, and I'd like your advice and expertise on how can I make this an and versus an or. And I don't know anything about STEM, so that's my human being response, right? Is how do I make this an and? Can I do both and fulfill our agreement, right? And anytime you're concerned, by the way, this does actually connect to how do we manage our time. Anytime that you are concerned that you're not spending your time in the ways that are suiting your needs, open up that uncomfortable conversation with a professor, right? Or with somebody who is in your field and has an expertise. Open up, hey, this is going to be a super awkward conversation. I really like your advice on something. Right? Otherwise, you're just going to keep working it over in your own brain and make yourself crazy. So save yourself some time and reach out to some folks. Can we talk this out? And the world does not have a single right answer. We like to pretend that it does, but we live in a world of gray and of choices. Right? Thank you. Anybody else? Something you want to bring up that you have a burning need to discuss? Anybody on Zoom?
How to find a balance between your expectation and your advisor's expectation about your job, and what do you need to do here? Like, sometimes I think it's connected with the imposter syndrome, like, but sometimes I feel they are waiting as much I can give for the university, for the program, and I would like to know how to balance that, like.
Okay, so I'm going to get into some specifics of how we create balance, but here's what I'm going to tell you about managing or balancing expectations. Expectations need to be really clear, and if they are unclear to you, or it doesn't feel possible to you, you open up that conversation. If I'm your advisor, and I have said, here's where you're going to spend your 20 hours, and you're like, excuse me, Dr. Cotrone, that's like 40 hours worth of work. That's the conversation. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel awkward. And it's going to be hey, do you have a couple of minutes? I really need to talk about the expectations of my GA or of the workload so that I'm clear in my mind. Bless you, right? Because sometimes, and I am guilty of this as a professor, I think something will take you 2 hours and ultimately it could take you 8, right? So one of my challenges is I assume if I know how to do something, everybody knows how to do it, right? You are learning. So opening up those conversations around help me prioritize, which by the way you will need to do when you are in the workplace. Can we walk through what I need to accomplish this week because I need to talk it out with how I'm going to allot my 20 hours. Don't be afraid to open up those conversations. Imposter syndrome keeps us from advocating for ourselves. And whether we know it or not, men have it too. Men just are able to hide from it better than women. Okay? So, don't be afraid to say, I need to talk this out. Because I want to make sure I'm meeting expectations and I'm being set up for success. Okay? So we're going to talk about the balancing act of the 24 hours in a day. But that advocating for yourself is key. Okay. Anybody else? Was that a hand up? No? Yeah?
I like to consider myself as a recovering people pleaser, perfectionist, all of that. So
Welcome. I suspect you're not alone in the recovering people pleaser. Welcome to our
yes.
one-step program. Go ahead.
I'm fine. I just put a lot of pressure on myself on trying to make everything perfect, or like sometimes I get too lost in the details of things, and so then that tends to take up a lot of time. And I'm like, where did the time go? And so that's.
Where are my perfectionists? Okay, perfection is not possible. Excellence is possible. I'm also going to share with you, when I was in my master's program and my PhD program, I would fall down the rabbit hole of the research. And then I'd be like, oh, this is a fascinating, only tangentially related research topic. Then now I'm going to go look up that document. And then that leads me to another piece of research. And then by the end of 4 hours, I'm looking at research on something that is completely unrelated to what it's supposed to be related to, right? So if I'm you, I'm going to give myself specific amounts of time for things. I'm also going to invite you to give yourself some grace over your need to be perfect. We're recording this, so I can't deny I said it. Sometimes you are going to have to choose between the things that need more of your time. I will share with you, in my PhD program, there were times when I uploaded an assignment and I said as I hit submit, not my best work, but it's done. Forgiving yourself for that is a big growth step. And I see it in my undergrads, that need for everything to be perfect, so then they run out of time on all the things. I will invite you to place the most amount of time in the things that you need more time on. And sometimes they're not the things that you love the most, right? Like, I love falling down the rabbit hole of research. I'm like, what a cool thing. I had no idea there were people researching this. Let me go find this other article that they referenced. It doesn't benefit me on those things that are deadline driven. So, excellence is possible. Perfection will just be debilitating to you and you won't sleep. We're going to talk about the importance of sleep in just a few minutes. Anybody else?
I wanted to add something to that. During my master's program, when I was doing my thesis, I was like 100 pages over, and my professor told me, my advisor, he said, you know, I couldn't take anything out. I was over explaining everything, and I was trying to reduce it, and I was going on and on and on. And my professor gave me this like really good advice. At some point, it just has to be done.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. At some point it has to be done. And that I've really taken that on board ever since. That like at some point it just has to be done. It doesn't matter if it's perfect.
Yes.
But I gotta press enter and complete.
And that's going to serve you well when you're required to publish, right? Because your publications are never going to be perfect.
Yeah, I still look back at my thesis and I'm like, oh, I want to change this, but it's like, no, it's 3 years past.
Yeah.
Return it.
Yeah. Shoot for excellence. Perfection does not serve us. Anybody else? Because I'm going to get started. Anybody online, Sage? Okay. All right. So, where are my Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fans? I once met the director of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, who, it will shock you to know, was not proud of his work. I'm like, dude, I bought this house. Is it Macbeth? No, it is not. But here's what I want you to think about. We manage our time better when we actually are harnessing our power, our energy, and our intellectual capabilities. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today. Time management is the way we decide to spend our time in order to maximize our productivity and achieving certain long-term goals. So we're maximizing the same amount of hours that everybody has in their day. Sometimes we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Sometimes we're deciding, do I really need to do this with my family? Because I also have this thing that has to be done for school. We are making choices. And here's what I will invite you to think about. Oftentimes, when we're in the thick of things, we make choices by not making choices. Those are tacit choices. Own your choices. Own the, not my best work, but it's submitted. I made a choice where I'm spending my time. I made a choice to be at somebody's birthday party because they are important to me in my life. And by the way, things like that are really important, right? I'm going to ask you to be thinking about what recharges you, what feeds your soul. Because those are the things we do not work in that actually make the rest of our time more effective. Right? So all this is how we utilize our time. What do you think harnessing your power is? Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. What might harnessing our power be?
Utilizing your strengths.
Utilizing your strengths. What else? When are you the smartest?
Noon.
Noon. Okay. Not a morning person. Okay. Who else is not a morning person? Excellent. Where are my night owls that your best work is 3 o'clock in the morning? Okay, night owls are an enigma to me. I'm smartest first thing in the morning. So I have no normal graduate experiences. I have always worked full-time since I started my master's program, right? So I too had all of those things that were juggling, right? So I figured out if I get up an hour before everybody in my house, I get so much done. So if you have something that you need me to give you really smart feedback on, 3 o'clock in the afternoon is not when I'm going to look at it. I will send you an email back and say, I will get this back to you tomorrow. Because tomorrow morning, my feedback will be much better than my feedback is between 3 and 5 in the afternoon or after 8 o'clock at night. So figure out when you're the smartest. And that's when you need to do the things that take the most of your brain capacity. How many of you have ever been fried? Like just intellectually, physically exhausted. And you've got really important work left to do, but you start to focus on the little things just to mark them off your list. Yeah, right? That's our brains begging for help. So I will invite you to do the least important things when you're not at your smartest and the most important things when you are at your smartest. Each of us is different. We can shift if we have to, right? The workplace tends to be, it tends to prefer early morning people. So you can teach yourself to be better in the morning. You will probably never fully shift to being a morning person. One of our most prolific researchers in the hospitality college, my friend Cass, is a night owl. So because of that, I know she's writing at 3 in the morning. My intention when I set up meetings is to make them late enough that she can actually be in the space to be able to offer feedback, because I know she was up all night writing, because that's when she's smartest. So that's how you got to figure out how much of your schedule can you shift. If you have responsibilities outside of your work that require you to be there if you have kids for things, you're going to have to figure out your workarounds. You're going to have to figure out, how do I make sure that I'm there for, I have a 15-year-old. I need to be there for the things that are important to her and also be able to use my intellectual capabilities when they are at their strongest. Here's something else I want you to think about. How many of you are in shared workspaces in your programs? Okay, I don't do well there. How many of you are like in the middle of flow? Brilliance is happening, If you've ever had this happen, raise your hand and somebody goes, hey, do you have a second? I want to talk to you about what's happening this weekend. Or, hey, do you have a second? I want to talk about what I just discovered that might be of interest to you. Every time we're interrupted when we are in flow and genius, it takes a minimum of 20 minutes to get back to where you were, if you're able to get back at all. So I'm going to recommend to you that you put up some kind of sign. If you're in a shared space, put it on your computer, put it on a hat, put it on wherever it needs to be that says, I'm in power mode. And tell everybody around you, when you see me wearing this hat, please take pictures of you wearing that hat and send it to me. If you see this door hanger on my door, unless the building's on fire, don't come get me. I am completely available when I'm no longer pumping out my genius, which may be my genius. If any time that I have up until 8 o'clock in the morning is my best. And then I open up from 8 o'clock on to other people. So you just have to tell everybody so that they're not like, what's wrong with Finley? She is super antisocial. Right? So then I'd be like, hello, friends who share this workspace with me. I have a really hard time focusing when there's noise or when somebody's talking to me or being interrupted. So here's what I'm going to ask for. I'm going to come into our shared space early in the morning. After 8 o'clock, I'm all yours. So you tell people so they're not like, what's wrong with her, right? We all have a cigarette of judgment. Like, what's wrong with her? So we get past the judgment and more into the, I am using my genius. Does that make sense? All right, because if we even get back to flow, we're losing 20 minutes every time. I'm going to invite you to stop multitasking. Research tells us that women are better at it than men, but it's still, I am a world-class multitasker, but we're still changing between brain functions, which takes time. Most people, and every job description I've ever seen has multitasking in it. Most people are not good at multitasking. Most people will squirrel down a rabbit hole and then come back to finish something. When you are working in your GA appointment, when you are in meetings, talking through what needs to get done, right, in your different programs, ban technology so that as you guys are deciding what's going to happen, one person isn't on their phone texting. Because it's not possible for me to text you and listen at the same time. And by the way, that will really benefit you in the workplace. Once you have these habits, stop multitasking. It slows us down. It causes us mistakes. It also causes us, well, I had all of these things that I had to get done at once, so I'm sorry that one wasn't done with excellence. It gives us an excellent excuse. Oftentimes, when we're trying to problem solve something, meetings become useless because half of us are not even in the room. Half of us are working on something else. I ban technology in my classrooms until it's time for technology because we know with my technology in front of me, it's too easy for me to check out. So when we start school classes next week, and we'll be like, all right, bring your technology because there will be times when we need it. And I'm going to tell you when those times are. And if you're on your phone, we're not in one of those times, I'm going to call you out. Because we can't be in two places at once. We lose 40% of our productivity when we're multitasking. 40%. It also is a real problem with working memory. We forget things. How many of you have been in conversation and people are like, I literally told you that yesterday? Okay, just a couple of us. I deal with that with my husband all the time. I'll be like, I literally just told you that yesterday. He'd be like, no, you didn't. Okay, I'm going to start recording because you're clearly doing something else, right? Our short-term memory can only hold so many things in it, and we have to be focused while we're doing it. Let me go into some tactics. Some of these you've already learned about. How many of you have ever read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Okay, still the best book on effectiveness, in my view, ever written, and I've read a lot of books. This one's from the 80s, before most of us were born. Notice how I jumped on that train with y'all. And it's still brilliant. So when you're floundering and you'd like some reading for effectiveness, I highly recommend it. So tactics, I'm going to invite you for the first couple of weeks of the semester to actually track your time. You can do it on paper, you can do it in an Excel spreadsheet, you can even do it in your Google Calendar. Track your time for where it's going and where you're spending time. So that if there's somebody that's in your shared space, and I would do it by 15-minute increments. If you get, hey Finley, you got a minute? From the same person throughout your day, now you know this person is taking up my time. So I'm not going to go to that person and be like, stop using all my time. I'm instead going to say, hey, let's talk about how we can benefit each other with the amount of time we have in the day to get things done. I'm a morning person, so that means in the morning I'm getting the most challenging things done. I am not an afternoon person. I am not an evening person. So if we need to bounce ideas off each other, maybe right after my power mode time, we take an hour where we brainstorm ideas, and we can put that on the calendar for every day if you'd like. You then become the owner of your time. I was almost late coming over here. Probably gave you guys a heart attack because I got hall-jacked. You know what hall-jacking is? Oh my gosh, Finley, good to see you. Hey, can we talk about this? Right? So stop hall-jacking other people, and when they hall-jack you, then you can say, I am working on not stopping people when they're on their way somewhere else. Can we put some time on our calendar? Right? You own it. You own it. Because you would be shocked at how much time being hall-jacked takes. Also, sometimes it's okay to allow it. It's your choice. So you run into somebody accidentally that you haven't seen in forever and that you adore. If you can let it happen, just let it happen so that you have that time to reconnect, and I would add that to my feeding my soul list of things that sometimes is important. Right? Just like sometimes it's really important to go out and have a beer with your friends, even though you have a paper to write. Right? Were you gonna ask something or say something?
No, I was gonna say, like, that's one of the hard or important things about like managing productivity is also like not being productive constantly and allowing for like the fun things to happen, because that's part of what being in a community allows for. But yeah, tough balance, obviously.
Well, and it's owning where you choose to spend that time. And for some of you, where were the perfectionists again? Probably while you're sitting down having that beer with your friend that you need to have because it's part of being in a community, you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, I have that paper due next week and I really need to be looking up the research for it. Oh my gosh. So you gotta have those meetings with yourself before you go have that beer that says, I am giving myself this time. Because we are not full human beings if all we're doing is our homework. We are not full human beings if we don't have people that love us around us. Thank you for that. So, track your time. I'd say do it for an entire week so that you can see, and maybe the first part of the semester is not necessarily the best time to do that. Go ahead and get yourself into the semester and then start tracking your time. We're in information overload nonstop. I received an email from the university over the summer about a new login on an app that I use, and paid zero attention to it because I get a lot of UNLV emailed you too. Yeah. And now I can't get into that application and had to send an email to IT with a, hey, I know I saw an email on this, but can you help me because I can't figure it out, right? We are in information overload all the time. There's a great book that was actually written in print format called Getting Things Done. There's now the updated version. Here are some things that he recommends. That We should follow, he calls it the TRAF method. So if it's junk, trash it, and that's email and that's print. If you need to just get it off your desk or get it out of your inbox, you do that immediately. If it's something that is not necessarily for you, or maybe another assistant that you're working with would be the person to refer that to, then you can forward it immediately. If it can be done in under 2 minutes, do it immediately. The fewer times we touch things, the better. So the fewer times you're rereading an email, the fewer times you're taking a look at what was, left on your desk. If you can take care of it now, take care of it now. Otherwise, it needs to go into an electronic file or a physical file, or I'm going to look at this at the end of the week when I'm going through all the things. Okay? So try to touch everything only once. Some things you'll need to figure out for yourself the best filing method. I have a colleague that uses an automatic filing system in her email. So anything that comes in from a certain email address goes right into a file. It does not stay in her active email. Now, I can't do that because I have the attention span of that dog in Up, right? Squirrel! So for me, if I file things away, I will never go back to review it. So I know that about me. So for me, if it's something that I can't act on within 2 minutes, I set it as unread again. So find out the best way for you. I do work with people that things that have to be taken care of but aren't going to be taken care of right now, they print it. Now that goes into overwhelm for me. If I've got a pile of printed thing, I'm like, I will, right? Also trees. So you figure out what works for you so that you're touching things as few times as humanly possible. This is right out of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, the how we plan our time. How many of you are planners? How many of you look at your month, your week, your day? Awesome. How many of you have things fall through the cracks? Okay, you're human. If what you're doing now for your time management means nothing is falling through the cracks, what you're doing is absolutely working. So don't let me screw it up. If you're on top of everything and nothing is like, oh, I forgot to's, what you're doing is beautiful. If you're having some challenges, here's what I'm going to recommend you do. From a personal life perspective, from a school life perspective, I recommend you start with, what does my year look like? Now, if you're somebody that needs paper to do this, you proudly go and you buy a 1-year planner and you let other people judge you with their lit up cigarettes of judgment. If you need it on paper, paper is yours. If you don't need it on paper, you can totally do it electronically. So you pick what works better for you. Sometimes, it took me a long time to get off of paper because I also like to take notes in the calendar. But then if I don't have it with me, now what do I do? So it took me a while to get off of the paper to get onto my electronic calendar and using my own notes pages electronically. You just need to build the habit. If you start with the year, now you've got what Stephen Covey would call the big rocks in your yearly calendar. So my daughter's a sophomore in high school. The first thing I did as we're figuring out what our school year is going to look like is go to the UNLV calendar, and I go to her school calendar, and the important stuff goes in there. When do I need to be there? She runs cross country. She has incredibly long legs, obviously switched at birth from my actual biological child. Every cross-country meet goes into my calendar as soon as I know about it, because those are the big rocks. Things that are important to people, that are important to you, right, need to go in first. Otherwise it becomes, I completely forgot. I was teaching an effectiveness class in a hotel, and the executive chef said to me, I missed every one of my son's birthday parties. Because he didn't go, okay, I know when my son was born. Hopefully he was there, I don't know. So I know this day needs to be the day that I get off work. For you, this is the day that I am blocking because this is super important, or the time that I am blocking. I'm a morning person, I've already shared with you. Give yourself 10 minutes, the beginning of your day or at the end of your day. Maybe you do 5 and 5. Maybe you're, here's what I've got coming for the rest of the week, here's what I've got coming tomorrow. It won't take you more than 10 minutes total. You're gonna start with the year, then it's gonna be the month. So right now we're in the middle of August. I've already done my month, what's coming at me. My week, it's Monday. I did my what's coming at me yesterday. Every morning, what's gotta happen today? That helps you use your brain power to reorganize what has to be done today. How many of you have had the shite hit the fan in the middle of the day and the rest of the things you needed to get done didn't get done? Okay. Also, it's okay if I cuss if I pronounce it wrong, right? Okay. Thanks. You're my people. Thank you for sitting right there. She's an easy laugh. I appreciate it. Your brain will reorganize the things that are on your to-do list if your brain has been fed what needs to happen, right? Let's talk about actually using our brains. It's probably later, but it fits here too. How many of you have toiled over homework that you needed to get done, a paper you needed to write, something that was really important and you stayed up all night doing it? Okay, stop it. I'm not saying it's not important. Staying up all night is not the best use of your brain. Your brain needs sleep. Sleep helps all of the ideas, all of the short-term memory go into long-term memory. Here's how my 1 hour every morning got me through my PhD. I've got a big paper due on Friday. Every night and every morning for a few days, I'm reading through all the things I'm synthesizing and the main points. Because your brain is most open to information first thing when you wake up and last thing before you fall asleep. So you review in the morning. Testing, same thing. Not a big fan of testing myself, but that's exactly the same thing. I'm being tested on these facts, so I'm gonna feed my brain the facts first thing in the morning and the last thing before I fall asleep. What you'll find when you use your brain that way is that those papers write themselves. That your brain, while you're sleeping, will synthesize all the research for you. Or at least get you started in such a way that it is easier to compile that big paper, or that it is easier for you in the last few minutes before you take that test to remember. Cramming doesn't do anything for us. Staying up all night studying for something or staying up all night writing something, you will not remember it, and it won't be your best work. So keep that in mind as you're planning. So Stephen Covey teaches us that we have areas that are urgent and things that are not urgent. We have things that are important and things that are not important. I won't go through this in depth. What I will tell you is that we will always have the quadrant of urgency and important. So a paper that's due tomorrow is both urgent and important, right? We're always going to have a certain amount of that. We want to spend more time in planning, preparing, writing, so that it doesn't become quadrant 1 chaos. Our goal is to stay above the line. Quadrant 3 is not important, but it feels urgent. He calls that the quadrant of deception. So things like, how many of you have your email notifications set? So it comes up on your phone when you got a new email, or the text so your phone vibrates. Okay, those are things that feel important and urgent, right? Because, oh, somebody just texted me. But they're probably not important and urgent. So when you're in my smartest mode, turn off those notifications. Because as soon as my phone buzzes, that little bird on there is me, right? Squirrel! And now how do I get back? The other one is waste and excess. Waste and excess is at the end of the day or on Saturday, you are completely fried. You have things that you have to get done for school on Monday, but you're in, I'm just gonna lay here and binge watch Netflix mode because your brain is fried. By the way, binge watching Netflix is sometimes important. Sometimes you need that. If you find, what?
You're so real, girl.
Right? If you find that that's becoming your norm, you're living in the quadrant of waste and excess, and that's not benefiting you. Here's what we know. The more time you spend in necessity or chaos, the more time you're going to want to spend in waste and excess. So the more time you plan, the less time you are going to spend in, oh shite, I have to get this done. We also know the more time you spend in necessity, the easier it becomes to let yourself off the hook for, well, that was the worst paper I've ever written, but I only had an hour. Right? Our focus on excellence is the more time we spend in chaos, the less likely we are to focus on excellence. Again, not perfection. So I've broken out what's in each of these boxes, and I want to point out, relationship building is not waste and excess. Spending time with the people you love is not waste and excess. It is quadrant 2. It is not urgent, but it is important. Here's the other thing I want you to think about. Those things that are not urgent do not get done most of the time. So I have a friend that I just saw last week that I haven't seen in quite a while. And I said, oh my gosh, I need more of you in my life. And she said, I will await your availability. That's planning, right? That's relationship building, and it's vitally important. So our goal, live above the line, work above the line. You're always going to have some sort of necessity. How many of you have ever gotten a flat tire? Those are things, except that, plan on that to happen at least once a year here, right? Because you're going to run over a nail. We don't plan for those things. Those things are always going to happen. The more time we spend in quadrant 2, the less time we will spend in quadrant 1. I already talked about how we harness our brain from a first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Let's talk about the difference between putting things on your calendar and what your to-do list looks like. How many of you have things that you need to do, but they don't have to happen at a certain time? Okay, those are to-do list items. Unless you are like me and you figure out how not to work it into your day, but it still needs to be done. If it's something that you enjoy so little that you have to force yourself to do it, put it on your calendar. Otherwise, just put it on your to-do list. Because if it doesn't have to happen at a certain time, it's something that just goes on your list. You can also then put your to-do list in order of, does it need to be done today, or can I move it for tomorrow? So every day on my to-do list, I have those things written down with an A, a B, or a C. C's very rarely actually get done on the day that they're listed. When they become a B is when I know I'm going to work it in. Or maybe something that was an A that needed to be done that day got done very quickly, so now I can go down my list to my C's. Once it's on your to-do list, you can always move it forward, right? I like to use laundry as an example. Today, laundry's a C for me. Tomorrow, laundry might be a B. Wednesday, laundry is an A, because Thursday, I'll be wearing this again, right? So laundry's a great example of something that I might put on my list. Doesn't have to happen today, it's not going on my calendar, and I'm going to keep moving it forward. Again, the unpleasant things, the things you don't like to do, calendar them, because then you're more likely to force yourself to do it. Yeah.
We got a question from Jen.
Hi, Jen!
I haven't heard of the time management matrix. How do we integrate tasks from time management matrix from our schedule, where we track our time and our daily tasks and activities?
So when you're tracking your time, this is a great question, by the way, thank you. When you're tracking your time, I want you to pick a week and track your time, and then go look at it. What was it? Were you checking emails? How much time were you spending on that, right? We live in a world where we want things instantaneous. If you sent me an email, I'm assuming it's not life and death. So I don't need to be in my email constantly, right? And so let me go back so that we can look at, how do I know that I'm living in crisis? Well, you'll know, right? Like I am constantly chasing things to get them done, or I'm constantly working on, oh crap, I didn't start that paper and it's due tomorrow. Planning preparation, you'll totally know. Where does that fit? Needless interruptions sometimes those are going to be your difficult conversations, right? Those are going to be I'm working on not stopping people as they're running by. Those are going to be the needless interruptions, the people that call you with a question and then you can't get them off the phone, but you're in your I'm smartest right now time. So great question, Dan. And maybe what you do on your time tracker is give yourself an extra column so that you can go, ooh, this one is a waste and excess and I need to stop doing it. Or this one is deceptive, I need to stop doing it. This deceptive interruption, I need to have a conversation with this person. And sometimes those are the people that we love the most, that we have to have those conversations with. Did that answer the question? I keep looking at the bird that's shaking its head. So we can come back if we need to, because that's a great question. We already talked about plan weekly, daily, monthly, and I talked about the importance of sleep. You need to make sure you are getting your ideal amount of sleep. We know, like my kid is 15, teenagers become night owls because that's what their bodies start doing. So I've had to banish technology from my 15-year-old past 10 o'clock, because the more we're on our technology, the more that tells our brains that it's time to be awake. And then lights out at 11, so that she can hopefully train herself to get enough sleep because she's up by 6 o'clock the next morning, right? For me, my ideal amount of sleep is 8 hours. I function really well on 7. 6? Not so much. So if you need to put in your calendar your sleep time, and you know your body, so start playing around with, okay, I like to sleep in, so that 10 hours, I'm golden. Cut it down to 9 and see what happens. Cut it down to 8 to see what happens. Maybe your body's just in the habit of sleeping more than it needs to. For me, if I've slept too long, I am a mess. I'm groggy. Like, what part of the day are we in? Right? So I've lost my brilliance time. So start messing around with that so you can figure out what is your ideal sleep schedule. Making up sleep at the end of the week is actually not a thing. Right? So let's say you stay up all week long and you get 3 hours of sleep, but your body needs 8, and then you sleep all weekend. You're actually not doing yourself any favors. We can't make up sleep. So keep that in mind. We talked about calendar and to-do list. If you need paper, I went and bought my kid one on paper, so they still make them. This one we've touched on. What recharges your batteries? What feeds your soul? How do you make time to do the things that help you feel at your best? What is something that you guys do to feed your soul?
Dance.
You dance. Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Friday nights.
You what?
Friday nights.
You dance on
Social
Friday
dance.
nights. So that's also a social opportunity for you. That feeds your soul and will probably be one of the things that you're like, oh, I gotta stay home and do
The thing
this.
is, after like a long day of like office work, and most of the times I'm like, should I do this? And I know it will recharge me.
The answer is always gonna be yes. Right? I love going to the theater. Good theater. I thought I should add that. Super easy not to go. But I know how I feel once I've gone. I just got back from Utah Shakespeare Festival. We went for one day, saw 2 shows. It was fantastic. So I also know if my budget can't afford it, I'm planning ahead so that I sock it away to make sure that I'm doing it. If you're a hiker, if you're somebody that just likes to go have your nails done, right? And gentlemen, I'm gonna recommend pedicures, always. So whatever that is, please make sure you're doing it because it makes you the better version of you for your family, for the people you love, and for yourself. Stephen Covey will call that sharpening the saw. So that's things like, how many of you love to read fiction? Oh my gosh, during school, how many books of fiction did you read? 0! Yes! Samesies. I love fiction. I have favorite authors. during a school year, it's really hard to work it in. But when I do, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this so much. So that's one of the things that I'm working on this year, is I gotta make sure I've always got a fun work of fiction that I'm reading. Because I'll read nonfiction forever. I'll read research forever. You too, because you have to, right? Work in the things that you love. It makes you better. If working that thing is, I had a meeting with the folks from Coursera. I love to jump into their new free courses and see what they're about. I have yet to finish one, but I'll go and I'll look at things and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. So I was in a meeting with Coursera and I said, I know what your courses look like because I've never finished one, but I've taken a bunch of them. And here's what they said to me. They totally validated me. This woman goes, oh, you're a snacker. I said, well, in more ways than one. I am a learning snacker. I love learning things that I didn't know, right? So that goes on my calendar. We can call it snack time, although that feels like it rats me out, right? But make sure that if you have to do the same thing with your soul feeding, you put up a sign, you wear a silly hat, whatever that is, you make sure you work soul feeding into your calendars. Okay, stress and keeping up. How many of you get stressed out? Okay. So there is a line of research in hospitality on emotional labor. In hospitality, it's peopling, right? It's the emotional labor of serving people, managing people. Here's what we know through that research. There are really healthy ways to deal with stress, and there are really unhealthy ways to deal with stress. Now, when I started my career in hospitality, I was a bartender, I was a server, I was a cocktail server. And at the end of a shift that was particularly stressful, we would all go out to the bar that was still open and rehash the day while we had cocktails together. What do you think, healthy or unhealthy? Totally unhealthy, right? The urge is super real of, oh my gosh, we just gotta go decompress from this. Here's what we know is unhealthy. Booze, drugs, not sleeping so that we can get things done because we went out and drank our faces off with our friends. Here's what we know is really healthy. Who knows? What is the healthiest way to deal with stress? So you're both right. She said exercise, being outside and exercise. Mindfulness meditation is the best way to deal with stress. Mindfulness meditation, by the way, does not have to take an hour. You're not spending an hour in silence following your breath. It can be as little as 5 minutes. It can be as little as, I'm going to hang up this sign. Obviously, I'm big on signs if you're in shared spaces. This is me recharging my battery. And it's as simple as, everybody get comfortable, feet flat on the floor. If you're comfortable doing it, go ahead and close your eyes. If you're not comfortable with your eyes closed, just pick a point in front of you that's comfortable to be staring at. And I'm going to invite you to simply breathe. So everybody take a big deep breath in through your nose and let it out through your mouth. And now let's slow the pace of our breathing. So as you're breathing in through your nose, you can let it go back through your nose. And just keep a pace as you breathe in and you let it out. As you're breathing in, I'll invite you to follow your breath as it enters through your nose. Where is it in your body? Follow it as it goes back out of your body. Next time you breathe in, I want you to think about breathing in all the good things. And then as you breathe out and you're following your breath, you're thinking about breathing out all the negativity. As your mind wanders, just come back to following your breath as you breathe in and as you let it out. Breathe in and let it out. Obviously, we haven't even done this for a full minute, but I'll invite you to open your eyes. Keep breathing, that seems important. So it can be something really quick to really help you ground yourself. Now, I work with hospitality executives, and I've had a gentleman that I taught how to do meditation, just like this, super simple meditation. They're much more, there are lots of YouTube videos you can watch, there's lots of apps you can use. This changed his life. So it's something you can work in that can reset you. So we know from the research, mindfulness meditation is the healthiest way to deal with stress. Yoga is a form of mindful movement, so it's number 2. All other exercise is number 3. Being outside recharges me. So when I used to work at Four Seasons, and I'd be like in spreadsheets, right? And then I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go walk around outside for a couple of minutes because it recharges my batteries. So you need to make sure you're doing those things, the easy stuff on a daily basis. If you're somebody that works out, and then if you caught yourself in your undergrad or in your master's program, as you got closer to the end of the semester, you stopped working out, it's got to go on your calendar because that keeps you sane. That keeps you able to focus. If you're somebody that really struggles with things like exercise, figure out what works for you. Maybe you just go for 5-minute walks every hour so that you keep your blood pumping and you keep that stress level lower.
Can I add?
Yeah, of course you
I add
can.
something? It's just, I think if you have any religion or any faith, you can practice these two, like sometimes helps you in the stress and managing your stress. Like, I know we have a lot of people from different countries here, and we have different religions or no religions, and who has it, I think it's a good practice to help with mindful too, like to be connected with your felt and to bring a little slow down and to focus on other things like.
So let me just make sure I understand. You're talking about using your community to help you focus and slow down?
Yeah, your religion community.
Okay. So community is vitally important. Absolutely. And when you're building your tribe, as I like to call it, make sure that you have honest relationships, right? I like to use dieting as an example. I'll ask people, how many of you have ever been on a diet? Just me? Okay, a couple of us, thank you. So the community that's going to support you to be your best is not the community that's like, hey, we've done really well, let's go out for ice cream, right? It's the community that will help you hold yourself accountable. Your tribe is both the, Finley, you look like you need some ice cream, and Finley, remember, this is what's healthy for you, right? Excellent, thank you. All right, I am right up against the clock, which is what I always do, so I apologize. Who has a word of wisdom that you need to share, like the couple that we've already heard, or a burning question that you'd like to ask? Yeah?
I got one. Pour your energy into people and things that are pouring energy into you.
Pour your energy into people and things that pour their energy into you. Yeah. I have a friend that used to call, and this is kind of backwards, but some of those energy vampires emotional slot machines where they just keep giving, right? Yeah. Pour your energy. Surround yourself with the people that make you better, not those that keep trying to pull you down, right? Nice. Who else? Words of wisdom or a question?
Just a joke. Can you manage my life for me, please?
No. They do have like AI chatbots that can help with that, but really it's taking ownership. It's being able to say, I choose to spend my time here. I had a student a couple of semesters ago who was a junior undergrad who had been having far too much fun in a fall semester. She was on a lot of the events boards and was doing the things that really fed her soul, but forgot that she also had homework to do. So she came to me crying, and I said, okay, here's what I'm going to ask you to plan the rest of your semester. Are there classes that you're not going to pass, no matter how hard you work? Because you're going to pay zero attention to those now. Are there classes that your grade just needs to be kept where it is? And are there classes where you're going to put all of your energy because if you work hard enough, you can pass it, right? So it's really, none of you is going to be in that situation, but it's really what needs my energy this week? My world fell apart today. What do I need to get done today before I do this, right? It's constant choices and giving ourselves the grace to make those choices.
Other question with this answer. We have here, like in the break group and all the introduced week and the group for international students to DA position, we have many opportunities. And we have a lot of interesting things to do, like how to manage, like what is a good thing for me now, what I can decide or pick up for the next semester, next year, or the last year, or how to do everything and to enjoy all the opportunities you have here. Like, it's really hard to decide.
It is so hard to decide. Decide. Right? There's no wrong choice. There's nothing you can do short of murdering people. Don't murder people. Right now in your career that is so wrong, it's going to derail you. Go to all of those things one time. Find your people. Find what you're like, ooh, I love this because everybody in this is super focused on blah, blah, blah. This one didn't feel quite like I had hoped it would. Right? So you give everything one piece of your time. And then it's okay. Right now my kid is a part of 2 conservatories at her school. And I said, we need to be okay that as you get farther along, you're probably going to drop one of these. Because there's no one way to do life. There's no one way to do our careers. So be a snacker, go do some experiences, and then that experience wasn't for me. Yeah?
When you said, like, when you're talking about, like, that one undergrad student that was, like, struggling for classes, that kind of reminded me of something I had to do during my undergrad.
Great.
Because I struggled really hard with calculus.
Same.
And calculus wasn't a requirement for my degree, but it was like an optional between that or statistics. But I like failed it a few times, and whenever I was failing it, I then dropped it and then just focused on my other classes to make sure I passed those.
Yep.
But it still bothered me in the back of my head, so eventually I came back to it, like years later, like during the summer, and I did pass it, which actually did help me in the long run for my master's.
Great.
But I hope I never take calculus again.
Again, I'm going to say same. I'm also going to say for most of the people in this room, because I suspect you're all like me, how many of you have a hard time putting a book down that you hate because you need to finish it? We have a disorder. I hate this book, I don't like its writing, but I must put more time into it. So it's a similar, I have to finish this class. Sometimes we just need to be okay with that is a bad book. Be okay with I didn't finish something. And in this case with calculus, it wasn't the right time. So maybe next year, one of the things that you thought wasn't great this year is going to be the time for you to find it have value.
It took me like 3 attempts of calculus, and on the 3rd attempt, I was actually in the McNair program. I don't know if you have heard of that.
I'm going to nod like I know what you're talking about.
But I was talking to the people there, and they're like, okay, but after this 3rd time, and if you still fail, then don't worry about it. It's
Yes!
not even required.
And it's harder for us to let it go because we are not failures in this room, right? Does it make you, does the thought of failing a class freak all of you out right now? Yes, of course it does. maybe it's just not the time. Maybe that one's just not for you. I'm so sorry. Okay, before I get the hook, you guys are gonna have an amazing year. Find your community and spend some time in where is the most important place for you to spend the limited amount of time that you have. So have a great year. Thank you for inviting me.